Hello, welcome to The Choice of a Young Voice, and my name is Caroline Muche. I am your host. Today we have a very important topic that we're talking about, new beginnings. And I don't even want to introduce the guests yet, because first, I want to show you what this lovely audience did. We were behind the scenes. We had a game about trust, about letting go, and some of them were quite scared and shy. Let's take a look. Hello, people! So today, we are talking about letting go. We're talking about trust. And so the activity, you see how I've just set you up like this? The activity we are doing is Baron, who's in the middle here, is just going to let go. He's just going to fall and just let go. And those of us around him will hold him and toss him around. You let go. Don't fidget. You just let go. Have you understood? Yes. Are you guys ready? Please do not make sure he does not fall.
Fall down.
It's about trust. So let's come together. Okay. We'll just toss you around.
Yeah.
We'll just toss you around.
But
you will not fall.
I fear.
What are you fearing?
Like we are too far from here.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Trust me.
Ati trust you.
COG yake.
Okay, let's try. Okay?
Wow.
Baron, come here. Someone else. We are learning to let go. Let's try. Oh yeah. 3, 2, let go. You're not letting go. Oh, you're not letting go. You need to be free and let go.
No, you see, she's shorter. Baron was taller.
No. She's still holding on. And she knows she's not let go completely. Her heart must be racing right now.
Oh, she's afraid.
Yes.
Fear not.
You will not fall down.
You will not fall
Start
down.
with me, you will not fall down.
Hey! Aya, are we ready?
That sounds like a
Let's
bench.
go. She's not letting go. Okay, now let's go and learn from the episode, and we'll see how we can let go and trust God to do new things in our lives. Okay?
Right.
Let's go. That was interesting. Doreen, just have a microphone. Why was it hard to let go?
Hey, I didn't trust them.
You guys, she doesn't trust you. Anyway, so today we are talking about new beginnings. Every person has to go through a season of new beginnings. You get a new job, you get a new boyfriend, a girlfriend, you move to a new town, get married, that's new. Every stage, everyone has to go through new beginnings. How do we handle new beginnings? And that's what we are discussing. And to help us, we have a lovely, beautiful couple. I'm telling you, these guys, we're going to learn a lot from them. This is Mr. and Mrs. Caleb and Situ Bett. Yes, they are managers of 3 schools. 3 schools in Kericho, Chep Colon schools, right?
Yes.
They'll be detailed. The names they're different names. I'll trust them to be detailed about it. So they're good schools. If you have, Adventist friends who need to go to high school or primary school, please. Very good schools to go to. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
So excited to have you guys here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now, to start us off, we're talking about, new beginnings. New beginnings is all about change. Why is change inevitable? Is that the word? Inevitable. Yes. Why do we have to go through changes in life? Situ could start us off.
It's a natural progression. You could be going through something and just need a total different direction to go into. For me, that's usually what's happened is my life was going a certain direction and I needed a overhaul change must happen. And that's not necessarily saying that it's bad or good. It's just needs to happen. It just, sometimes you just need to reevaluate what's happening in your life, or you might not even have a choice actually sometimes. It just happens and takes you in a different direction, but it's just, I think it's just a part of life. It's not something you have a choice whether it happens or not. It just happens.
It just happens.
Yeah, it just happens.
Yes, Caleb.
I think because human beings are just not perfect,
Yeah.
and we make mistakes, and usually most of the times it's because of our imperfection that causes a shift in life, whether it is some of the choices that we've made, whether it's a job or a life partner or different, even career.
Yeah.
You choose a career that you probably thought was you had reasons for making those choices, and then you realize it's probably not what you thought it was, and you had to make a change.
You had to make a change.
Yes.
Does anyone have, another thought here? Why do you have to go through change in life? Yes, Baron. Microphone.
Oh, I'm Baron. I think why I should go through change like me. Sometimes I want to talk about, because it is general,
Yes.
I want to talk about maybe a relationship.
Yeah.
There is somebody that I have in mind, and because of maybe time, we've been for a long time, and I'm seeing things that when I continue be with this person, then maybe my future is going to be ruined. Because this is when I consider the time that I will be with this person in my life will be more than the time that I stayed with my parents. So that is my life. So when I see things that are not right in her, then it will force me to make a change. How much it will be hurting, then it will force me to do it.
You just have to. It's inevitable. Yes, Rachel.
Another reason as to why we go through change is because we give ourselves room to grow. For instance, think of insects, from eggs to larva to nymph to an adult. And so even us, some changes in life help us to grow and gives us experiences that perhaps if we didn't choose to change, we would never have them.
Yeah. Yes. Hold your microphone.
I would beg to differ a little. Change is like we say, you don't choose to. It comes. The human life is progressive. You don't stay there. So today you are this, tomorrow you are something else. And that is change. So it's either you adapt to it or it will turn you over. So we have, change comes, it's natural. We never control it.
Okay.
So you either adapt it in the good way or it messes you up.
Yes. So I guess that's what, Caleb.
Maybe I can, choose to look at it in this way. There are two forms of change. There's one that you cannot avoid, and there's one that you can avoid. There are choices you make that you could have not made, or you could have decided to go in a different direction.
Yes.
And there are those, like he has mentioned, where you're growing. You can't be in primary school all your life.
Yes.
You can't be in high school all your life.
Yes.
So there are changes you have to make and or have to go through. Yeah. So I think there's two ways, there's two types of changes that you can go through. Yeah.
Okay. So now, just to add on to this, maybe let's just share a few experiences, What are some of the changes or new beginnings that have happened in your life that were difficult to adjust to, or it was, Situ, you could start.
I think one of the more major ones for me was going from living in the US, coming back to Kenya, actually coming back to Africa, because I did a few countries before I finally made it back to Kenya. But that was after 14 years, so my whole teenage life, adult life had been in the US, and that was huge. So going from a country where you are the minority and life is lived in a certain way to a complete overhaul, because the value system is completely different. The way life is lived is different. The way people interact is drastically different, right? So it took some getting used to. So that's the major one, one of the major ones, and then getting married, of course. And then we just had a baby. So it's been a few major ones back to back.
Yes. What about you, Caleb?
I think one of my most major changes was going to high school. I remember, excuse me, I remember when I was in, after primary school, I decided to go to Uganda for high school. And I wasn't prepared. I was still very young in my mind, and I was very scared. And as soon as my dad left me to finish admissions, and I ran to the nearest phone and phoned my mom because I couldn't tell him. So I told her to call my dad and tell him to come back.
True story. True story.
Absolutely true story. And mind you, those, back then, I think you know this, you'd travel overnight to go to Kampala, then go to school. So that was overnight to Kampala. Then he was on his way back. So that was overnight back to Kericho, right? Then he had to take an overnight bus again to come get me. And then we took an overnight back.
And he did it.
So those are 4 straight nights he was on the road because of me. And we didn't even get a refund.
I know.
So that, okay, I think I was young. We actually went to Uganda to Bugema to check out the school, and I loved it. It was beautiful and everything. But I didn't realize how far I would be from home. It was just exciting to say, I'm going to be in a different country for high school. You're going to tell your friends, I use my passport to go to school.
I have a passport.
I have a passport, exactly. So it was exciting, but I really didn't realize how much of a change it would be. And even the culture there was different. How the Ugandans view Kenyans is different. Even how Kenyans view Ugandans is different. So it was just such a huge shift. And I cracked. And I just was like, you know what, I can't do this. But I ended up back there in Form 2. So there's a happy ending. And of course, the most major one is the baby. I think that's the most drastic change in my life that is most recent.
Hey, being a parent.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know. Like, and you can't take it back.
Oh yeah. No take backs.
Can't give it back.
For parenting, no take backs. I remember night 2 after he was born. When he was born, our baby is called Jude Kiprono. When he was born, day 1 was so easy.
We were like,
so
he's
calm.
the best baby.
Yeah, we were thanking God. We're like, he's the calmest baby ever. Night 2.
I don't even think we slept.
We didn't. We absolutely didn't.
And we're like, whose child is this? This is not the baby I birthed.
The nurses must have switched our baby because he was screaming his lungs out. And we were looking at each other like, okay,
we were not ready.
We didn't sign up for this. But
he's back to being calm, so he's good. It's all good now.
So there's another happy ending.
Someone to share a change that was a new beginning that was difficult to adjust to. Does anyone have? Okay, me I have. Hey. I've had to, growing up, I've had to move to different places because my parents were studying abroad. Then, so when I was a kid, we were there. Coming back, you have to adjust. People are making fun of you. Hujui kuongea Kiswahili. People are making fun of you. You have to adjust to that. Going to school in Uganda, you have to adjust to that. Moving to Kisumu. I lived in Nairobi for so many years. Sasa I'm moving to Kisumu, I have to adjust to the new church, to the new system, to the new way. And there are times, honestly, there are times it was hard. There are times I'd cry on a Friday night because I want to go back and sing with shofar. There are times I'm like, I miss my life. But then you have to realize that you have to accept the change that
Yep.
God brings change for a reason.
Yep, yep.
I mean, if I
Yes.
didn't move here, we wouldn't be doing this show.
Very true.
I wouldn't have met you people and bonded so well like we have, you know. So change is inevitable.
Yes.
And so, as we continue talking about change, maybe one thing we need to realize is, in order to adjust to change, you have to let go. And even that's the exercise we're doing today. How do you let go? This could be, we can talk about, let's say for instance, relationships.
Well, well, I've had to let go of relationships that were not very good for me. And you just have to accept the fact. One of the first steps to getting through change is acceptance of the fact that change is inevitable. And look at the factors that led to the change, and that will allow you to actually gain some comfort in the fact that the change has taken place. Because when I look at some of those relationships that I was in, I realized that it might have not led to what God was intending for me to have.
Yes.
Or it might have hindered my relationship with God in one way or another. And therefore, it was God mostly, like holding my hand and pulling me out, so I don't end up ruining my life and not having what the good plans, you know, not experiencing the good plans that God has had for me from the beginning.
Wow. Situ?
And you know, it's a matter of having the right people around you. For me, the changes that have happened have been because I've listened. And of course, as a teenager, you're going to rebel. Like the moment you tell me, this is probably what you should do, I'm going to do the exact opposite. But quickly you realize, as you start to grow up, you realize that if you have the right people around you, the right family members, they're going to help push you in the right direction. And possibly, especially for relationships, that's what's been my best voice, has been my family and my friends telling you, I don't necessarily think this is the best person for you. And again, you're usually in a bubble as you're in a relationship that's not the best variety for you. And it takes someone outside to tell you, I don't think this is it. I don't think this is really who you are. And people can see that. They can see that you're changing the type of person that you are because it's a toxic relationship or something like that. But having the right people, having the right family members around who can be honest and tell you, this isn't working out, or this probably isn't the best career for you, or you're trying to be an accountant and you hate math, and this isn't the thing for you, you know, right? Just I think having the best version of people around you and listening to them as well.
And having to let go of childhood and childishness. Because I think a lot of times change happens inevitably, like we've said, and you realize that you still have that childishness in your mind, and you are refusing to mature. Life is hitting you with one after another, one thing after another, and you're still like, no, I want to remain a child. And so many times, by the way, I've ended up interacting with people who are younger than me, and then I realize, oh my gosh, I've matured in one way or another, that I sometimes didn't want. You don't want to feel old, you don't want to feel like I'm aging, and you want to hold on to certain things that are just not right for you at that time. So you have to let go of childishness. Like once you're done with university, you're done. Like leave that environment of the university. You know that people who in the workplace, they still look like they're in campus, you know? And they still behave, they have that behavior, and they refuse to move ahead, and it even hinders them in their career, because even your superiors can see there's a
There's a
certain
problem,
lack
yeah.
of maturity here.
Let me pause for a moment before, because we'll soon go on a break. Question. I want to give you a chance to ask a question. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm asking, you know, you have talked about positive changes, and what about the negative changes that affect us or others?
Could quickly say something before we go on a break?
I think negative changes are usually specifically because of things we've done. Sometimes
Sin.
Sometimes, yeah, definitely sin. Definitely sin. Like we're talking about relationships. I voluntarily chosen to be in a relationship, and I might not know who the person is, but as you get to know get to be in the relationship longer, you find out who they are. You end up changing because you're trying to adapt to this type of person.
Yeah.
Or the choices that you've made in terms of friends, like drugs and things like that. That's a terrible change, a bad change.
We'll have more to say about that because it's important.
Absolutely.
It's important to talk about
Absolutely.
how negative change can affect us as young people growing up. So stay with us, please join the conversation. Follow us on our social media platforms. What kind of changes have you experienced in your life? And when we come back, we're going to learn now, how do we adjust? How do we accept change and mature, like what Caleb has shared. So, and also, don't forget to subscribe to our Skiza Tunes right there on your screens. Please let your caller meet Jesus. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. You are watching The Choice of a Young Voice, where we discuss the different choices we need to make as young people in this generation. And today we're talking about new beginnings. We're talking about change, letting go. And before we went on a break, someone asked a very important question. How does, we've talked about positive change, but what about negative change? Is it inevitable? Or is it, what causes negative change in our lives? Yes, Caleb, do you have something to say?
What really causes a negative change in our lives is mostly sin. That's the best beginning of negative change, because as a result of sin, we have bad choices that we make, and we even have death.
Yeah.
That is one of the most drastic negative change that actually someone can go through. And all these are actually as a result of sin.
Yeah.
And the good thing about a Christian young person is that they recognize that these negative, drastic changes happen.
Yeah.
And as a young Christian, your focal point should be God, should be Jesus Christ. And when your focal point is there, it does not mean that those negative changes will not affect you.
Yeah.
It does not mean that they won't take time to get out of or to get over.
Yeah.
It just means that it'll be easier because you have God,
An anchor.
you have an anchor, you have someone holding your hand and bringing you through all these situations.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And when we're experiencing change, there are times, like, thank you for bringing up, negative change. There are times, for instance, you lose your job. You lose your job and you're in a season of this, what do I do? How do I, there's nothing, you're looking right, left, center, everywhere, there's no job coming up. What can we do in this season of waiting? Especially, you lose a job, you lose your boyfriend, he dumps you. That it happens. There are people who commit suicide because of such negative changes that happen in life.
Very true, very true.
How do we adjust to negative change? And rather, what do we do in the season of waiting?
If you allow me to
Yes.
Just say
you can-
something.
okay, please.
Something's burning in me. I apologize for that. Most of the times, this season is a season of preparation for your next chapter and for what God has in store for you. Most of the times, as young people in this generation, we are so not good at waiting. You just want the good things right
Instant
now.
gratification.
Instant gratification. We were on our way here, we were talking with my mom, and we were talking about how even when it comes to jobs, it's very hard for you to hear a young person who's been at a job for more than 5 years. While our parents retire at 60, having been in the same job for 45 years. In this generation, you can't find a young person who'll be like, I'm going to be in this job for 45 years. No, I think let me do something, let me do something else. And therefore, that's why we keep hopping jobs, we keep hopping relationships, we keep hopping hobbies, we keep hopping careers, because we are not good at sitting and waiting. Well, not sitting literally, but allowing God to walk through those waiting periods to prepare you. Look at what happened to Moses before he actually led the Israelites out of Egypt. He didn't, God didn't bring him through the palace in Egypt and decide that he was going to actually bring out the Israelites from the palace at that point. He actually needed, he made his own mistakes, in fact. He killed twice. And when he was found out, he had to escape. And in that period that he was away from Egypt and taking care of sheep and everything, God was actually preparing him. And you realize that in that period that he understood how to lead a multitude from taking care of sheep. And that is what sometimes God's silence means. It's just that he's preparing you. It's just that it's a period of waiting till your next chapter.
Begins. Situ, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I think while we're in that transitional phase, the most important thing to do is draw closer to God. My husband has already talked about that, but like, if you really think about that transitional phase that you've had in your life, you may, for me personally, I wasn't as close to God as I should have been. That should be your time to like reboot. Like when your computer freezes and you're like, all right, let me just hit restart. That's your restart button to just, all right, let me grow closer to God and figure it out. That way, when I have that amazing job that I have, I already know what my priorities are. God first and then everything else. When I have the amazing relationship that I wanted, that I've prayed for, God first and everything else. We get stuck in this, I really want a relationship, and then you put your spouse or your partner ahead of God. That just destroys everything. It turns everything upside down. So I think that time, that transitional period is the time for you to reflect on God and his amazing grace and figure out how he can get you through. Even if it's not what you think your next chapter should be, he knows what his will and his plan is for you. So that's the time for you to draw closer to him, so that you know and have the grace to be able to accept what's coming next.
Okay. Yes. More comments, questions. Let's go. Yes.
A question. Let me just go back to the relationship. We are talking about letting go. And we are told that this is a time that we are getting prepared. God is preparing us for what is coming for us tomorrow. There are these beings that most of men, it is general, that they are used to let go. I'm getting a girlfriend today, then after a short time, I will let go because there is something I've seen from her. Tomorrow I get another one. What's the danger of that? Is there a danger of letting go like quickly. 10 or what? Or how for us to study, I want to study a lady for so that I can know who a lady is.
Yes.
When I get into a marriage, I know I can tell who a lady is.
Yeah.
Is there a danger of letting go in short way and so many?
Absolutely. You know, every time I've heard this, and we did quite extensive premarital counseling, and what he kept stressing is every time you're in a new relationship, a piece of you is chipped away. So now imagine you've been in 20 relationships before you get to your actual partner. How many pieces of you have been left behind? And that's the truth. Because unless you're in relationships for other types of reasons, something of you is attached.
Yes.
That attachment usually doesn't go away, right? So there absolutely is a danger. You don't want to do that. The reason, we literally just talked about this on the way here. I'm back to the point where I want to, I had, right before we got married, I had told my mom, I think I want you to just pick someone for me. Like back in the day, because someone who knows you and can know good qualities, because in this day and age, what we're looking for isn't the right thing, right? That's why you can easily say, I'm gonna let this relationship go. And the other thing to remember, we aren't perfect. So when you see some fault in the other person and you decide to let them go, what type of fault do you have? How do you know they weren't about to let you go, right? So it's important that we think about this, because we're stuck in this, specifically in relationships. I want my perfect mate. What does a perfect mate look like? Like us, it's a choice I've made to marry him. It's a choice I have to make continually to love him, to accept his faults, because again, I'm not perfect. He's accepting my faults, right? So by the time I've said, I'm dropping this one, how many more faults do you have? Right?
You keep dropping everyone you have.
It's absolutely a dangerous thing to go that route.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so now, does anyone have another question? So that we can move on. Yes.
I have something disturbing me here. There are those people who meet change. I don't know whether it's change that meets them or them
They meet
meeting
change.
change. We have this set of people, they're young. You might realize maybe someone has lost both parents at a very tender age, but then they don't have a way out. So at some given point, they might resort to other things. It's because life has put them so. So what can we say about them?
And as you answer that question, I want us to now talk about how do we adjust? How do we accept? You know, like you talked about maturing. How do I get to that point where now I'm a mature person? From childhood to how do I adjust to the changes that have come my way? Yes.
I think, first of all, we have to realize that we are talking about young people who are young Christian people. And there's someone, when I was in the University of Eastern Africa, Barton, that has never left my mind, that the good Dr. Kesis preached about. And the title of his sermon was, "The Problem is Spiritual." And I can guarantee you that every single one of our very drastic changes or very wrong choices boil down to our spirituality and how close we are to God at the time.
Just for a second, start writing the choices you're making because we don't have much time, and start putting them up, okay? Carry on.
When your focus shifts from God and from Jesus Christ, your priorities shift as well. And you realize that some of the choices that you make, you're not putting into account what a Christian should do. And a lot of the times, that is what causes us to seek refuge in all the wrong places, whether it is drugs, whether it is toxic relationships, whether it is our work, because some people become workaholics because of, they're trying to find refuge and forget or rather suppress
What happened?
whatever happened, whether it is death, whether it is a really bad relationship that you've gotten out of, whether it is a series of bad choices that you've made and that you just want to forget.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing about Christianity is that it gives an opportunity
Yes.
for a new beginning
Amen.
every single time. And that's what Jesus Christ is all about. That's what God is all about. That's what salvation is all about.
It's never the end.
It's never the end. You can actually, even on your deathbed, you can actually have a new beginning right there before you breathe your last. And that's one of the most amazing things about being a Christian and being and knowing Christ. And I think anyone who is going through what my brother has just mentioned, they need to be pointed to Jesus Christ
Yes.
so that they can find a fresh start there. Yeah.
Wow. Amen.
Amen.
New beginnings. Yes. You married the prince.
I tell
you.
Yeah, you asked the question, how do you adjust?
Yeah.
Christ and Christ alone. I don't think there's any way you can do it on your own. Because probably doing it on your own is what got you to make the bad choice specifically in the first place. So yeah, Christ and I think knowing Christ and knowing God's principles for us and God's instruction for us and God's will and his wants for us leads us to know who the right company is going to be, right? The friends that I can have, like look at us, right?
Yes.
You know, that we can have a conversation and I tell you, Carol, I think you're dating the wrong person, right?
I
Or
hope
Carol,
not.
I know. Believe me, I've told you you're dating the right person, right? So no, but we've had other conversations like that, right? It's being able to have people who are have the same mentality as you, are Christ-minded, are going to, when you sit down to have a conversation, it's not going to be, Christ isn't going to be very far in the back of your minds. In every single thing you're doing.
Every thought, every action.
Every thought, every action, every reaction, right? Everything is going to be, would God be happy with this?
Yes.
I know my friends are happy with this, but is God happy with this? Is what I'm doing okay? Right? And that leads us ultimately to the right path, I believe.
Keep putting your choices up. Does anyone have something to say before we close? I'll give only one opportunity. Yes.
Okay, I'm Brenda. I have a comment to the young people. God's time is the best. We should we should avoid wrong relationships that might ruin our lives as young people. To wait for God's time. There
God's
is no
time.
hurry.
Amen.
New beginnings, everyone.
Amen.
You wanted to say something, your final thought, or you're good?
I just wanted to add on, just a change of environment sometimes is absolutely necessary. The church is a very good place to be when you're going through a hard time. You know, worship is such a healer, by the way. You know, Sabbath evening, going for Vespers, singing, Sabbath school, you know, having lesson discussion, divine service, afternoon Bible study. Those are very important. It refocuses your mind on the most important things, and that is having a closer walk with Jesus.
Amen. Amen. Have you guys been blessed? You had a comment to make? Or I hope it's not a question, because there's no time to answer it.
Okay, I just want to say something. Let go and let God. All is possible.
Amen.
Amen.
Repeat. Let go
and let God. Amen.
Doreen, we should try that activity again.
We should see if she'll have more trust.
And we'll see. Don't you think we should?
No, but the rest need to have God as well, so that they can catch her.
Oh, yes. Do you all have God? So that you can let go and let God and make sure she trusts you. We need to learn to let go and accept the new things God has brought in our lives.
Amen.
We might go through a season of, oh, it's hard to adjust. Because I mean, you can't, how do you change from a whole, like you move like her, you know, from the US back to Kenya and just you're okay. It doesn't happen automatically.
No,
Yeah.
it does
So
not.
there's a season of adjusting, but as you're trusting God, He guides you. He helps you through that season. And so whatever season it is that each and every one of us are at, you don't have a job, you're searching, you're really, really searching. Just trust God.
Amen.
Trust, He'll show you. Remember what we learned with Dr. Mutero, you know, that there are times you also have to make an initiative, you know, volunteer somewhere in your waiting period. Let God lead you, you know. What bad relationships, when you have, I remember once, hey, I'm talking too much. I'm the host of this show and I need to sign out. But before I do, let's look at what you've talked about. This is a choice board where the young people are making a decision to, you know, let go based on the topic we're talking about. Let go and let God. However hard it is, no matter how hard it is, you have a loving Father above. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. Someone else says, every step I make in life, I put Christ first.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
Another person says, it is never the end. Let Christ take control.
Amen.
Yes, and someone else says, as young people, we should let go wrong relationships that can ruin our lives.
Amen.
So it's all about letting go and letting God. New beginnings are inevitable, but they are blessings.
Amen.
And God will walk us through it. He'll guide you. Don't worry, don't be alone. Like we've been encouraged, have friends, a family of believers who can cheer you on and tell you when you're on the wrong track, tell you when you're on the right track. And I believe with God, everything and absolutely everything is possible.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
So what are we saying today? Let go.
And let
Now
God.
let's say it together.
Let go and let God.
Put that as a hashtag on our social media platforms, okay? Follow us and download, subscribe to our Skiza Tunes. Let your caller meet Jesus. Thank you for watching, and I do hope that God will guide you through all your new beginnings. We'll see you next week.